Okay, and in this video we're going to start off with question 27 of the demand worksheet and hopefully work our way up to 40. Okay, so question 27 reads, when we change the autonomous level of demand from Q1 to QD1 to QD3, what happened to the demand curve on the graph? Now, if I can just take you back here, so this is changing the autonomous level of demand from 200 as it was here to 100 as it is here. As we can see, that's an inward shift of the demand curve. It shifts inwards, or inwards, leftwards, or downwards, okay, whichever way you want, and I would probably use all of them. Okay, so the demand curve shifts inwards. As I said, I use all of them, and I'm the one saying just shift inwards, okay? Don't forget you can say the other two as well, okay? List 6 reasons that may cause this to happen. Well, it's the exact same as the ones mentioned in the previous video, which is tastes and preferences of consumers moved away from the product. That's TOIS again, T-O-E-I-S-S. Okay, so the T is taste and preferences, the O is other related goods prices, prices of complements and prices of substitutes. The I is income, or sorry, T-O-E, the E is expectations regarding future price, the I is income, the S is size of the market, and the last S is special circumstances. Okay, so taste and preferences of consumers moved away from the product. That would cause people to buy less at every given price. That's an inward shift in the demand curve. The price of a substitute good fell, making goods that fulfilled the same function as the good in question. That's the definition of substitute, making them more attractive to consumers, where the price of a complement rose. Okay, and we're saying that complements, a good example of complements are cars and petrol. Okay, consumers expect, the E is expectations, consumers expect that the future price will fall, and therefore, no, I'll hold off and I'll buy it at the cheaper price in the future, I won't buy it today. Income of the consumers fell, and the good is a normal good. As you become poor, you buy less normal goods, so therefore, if your income falls and the good is a normal good, you will buy less of it. The size of the market decreases, meaning there are less consumers. If there's less people wanting to buy the good, there's less goods that will be bought. And something unusual happened, causing consumers to buy less of the good, like the demand for ice cream on a very cold day, right? That's the idea there, at least. Suppose the demand function now for Mongolian beef. So I'm currently in Mongolia at the moment, so all of my stuff relates to that. Suppose the demand function of Mongolian beef is QD equals 200 minus 40p. What is the autonomous level of demand? It's just 200. And I know I may be doing this kind of over and over again, but it's the number on its own. That's what autonomous level of demand is. That's the amount that will be bought at a price of 0. The amount that will be consumed is the price of 0. What does the autonomous level of demand represent? Forgive me, it is the amount that would be purchased or consumed at a price of 0. In the demand function, QD equals A minus BP, which of the following would not cause a change in A, the autonomous level of demand? An economic recession, well, that would cause a reduction in income, so therefore that would be, it is part of TOIS. Changes in tastes and fashions, well, T stands for tastes and preferences, or tastes and fashions of the consumer, so that would cause a shift in demand. The price of related goods, well, it's TO, and it's other related goods prices, such as complements and substitutes. If they change, that's going to cause a shift, so you're dead right. And the price of the item in question, that is going to cause a movement, not a shift. A movement along the demand curve, not a shift. Okay, now, of the 3 following linear demand equations, QD1 equals 300 minus 50p, QD2 equals 300 minus 100p, and QD3 equals 300 minus 10p, when the slopes are different, it's difficult to draw. What is the difference between the 3 equations? Well, the number before p, or known as the b variable, is different. This means that the slope of the 3 lines or the demand curves are different. Okay, so because the number before p is different, that means that their slopes are going to be different. Please do not forget that. Okay, that is the slope. Now, if you want to get really technical, it's the inverse of the slope. We're not worrying about that now. If asked for the slope in a econ exam, you will just say it's the number before p. Okay, so now we know, I'm not going to waste, well, it's not really wasting paper, but I'm not going to waste time. The A value is the same for all 3 of them. Okay, so they're all going to cross the Q axis at 300. Okay, we know that, right? But I will just start off with QD1. Okay, and what I'm going to do is, and maybe it's boring, but it's probably good to keep it boring, so it's the same every time, so you know what you're doing. Okay, so we know that P equals 0, QD1 equals 300. Okay, so now I'm going to set the quantity equal to 0, minus 50p. I'm going to bring the minus 50 over, becomes a plus. It's 300. Divide both sides by the number before the letter we're trying to find. And p equals 6. Yes, it is 6. Okay, so we've got p equals 6 and qd equals 0. So what I'm going to do here now, this is going to be somewhat difficult, but hopefully it won't be too bad, okay? So we know for a fact, I just want to make sure you can see that, and you can. We know for a fact that at a price of 0, quantity demanded was 300. That's the same for all of them, guys, okay? And then at a price of 6, quantity demanded is 0, okay? Now what we are expecting, because the number before, and we won't get to see it yet, but because the number before b changes, what we are expecting is the slope of these 3 lines to be different. That is what we are expecting, and we are right to expect that. That's D1. Okay, so then we go back to this here, back to our calculations, and we say, right, QD2 is 300 minus 100p. Well, I might as well write it all out. QD2 equals 300 minus 100p. Now, just to be clear, this number before p has gotten bigger. I know it's technically smaller because it's a minus, but the absolute value of the number before p has gotten bigger. So, what do we expect to happen to the slope? Does it get flatter or does it get steeper? Remember, the number has gotten bigger. Okay, remember that. All right, so again, I'm going to set QD equal to 0, 300 minus 100p. Going to bring the 100p over. And again, I keep on making that mistake. I bring the minus 100p over, becomes plus 100. Divide both sides by the number before the letter we're trying to find. The letter we're trying to find is p. The number before p is 100, so we get p equals 3. So at a price of 3, quantity demanded 2 equals 0. Okay, so remember these numbers here now, okay? P0, quantity demanded equals 300. That's the same for all of them. How do we know that? Because they all have this A of 300. Okay, but at a now remember this number has gotten bigger. The number before the P has gotten bigger in absolute terms. So what do we expect to happen to the demand curve? Does it get steeper or does it get flatter? Okay, well, if we have a look here, and again, if ever you're unsure, draw it out. We know, as always, well, not as always, but in this question, as always, because the number of autonomous demand was 3, or 300, it's going to be 300. But the next one here is P, is this one. Okay, so ask yourself this question. Has it gotten steeper or has it gotten flatter? Well, I hope you would agree that it's gotten flatter. As the number before P increases, as it has from here to here, the demand curve gets flatter. I almost made that mistake. The demand curve gets flatter. Let's check that. So therefore, this 10 is less than this 50. Okay, and this won't work because it's got to go up to 30 and this one doesn't. So I'll do it a different way now to calculate the QD. But if the fact that this is less than that, then, and what we're saying is as the number gets bigger, the curve gets flatter. So therefore, as the number gets smaller, the curve should get steeper. Okay, well, let's check this. Like in all of the examples, because we have QD equals 300 minus 10p. If I put p as 0, if I put 0 in there, that all goes away, and I'm left with QD equals 300. And then I'm going to go 0. Well, I'm not going to go 0 actually. I'm going to do something else, and the reason is QD, because I haven't drawn my diagram up to what would it require, 30. I've only drawn it up to 15. Okay, so we're going to go at a price of, let's say, 10. Okay, so we've got 300 minus 10 times 10. QD equals 300 minus 100. QD equals 200. Okay, so this is just another way of doing it. So at a price equals to 10, quantity demanded equals 200. Well, let's put these things here. Again, like all of these, just make sure you can see. This point here is on it. And now we've got at a price of 10, quantity demanded is 200. That's it there. So as we've already said, the number before the P became smaller, and what has happened to the demand curve? become a lot steeper. D1, D2, and then D3. And maybe I'll get rid of this out here so I can just keep everything like that's D1. Okay, and there we go. Now, that's what I need you to see, that as the number before the P gets smaller, the curve becomes flatter. Now, I want you to understand why, and I know I will be repeating myself because I'm sure I'll put this question in later on. This here is the slope of the demand curve. It is also the amount the quantity demanded changes when price changes by 1. If quantity demanded changes by a lot when price changes by 1, that means it's a flat curve. If quantity demanded changes a little when price changes by 1, that means it's a steep curve. Okay? I just want you to be aware of that at the very least. Now, so I had to change this by hand. When we've changed the number before P from QD1 to QD2, which was here from QD1 to QD2, okay, what happened to the demand curve? The demand curve became flatter. That's what happened. When we changed it from QD1 to QD3, the demand curve became steeper. All right. In the formula QD equals A plus BP, what does the B represent? The B represents the slope of the demand curve. It is the change in quantity demanded when price changes by 1. In the linear demand equation, QD equals 100 minus 20p. What is the slope of this demand curve? What does this number represent? Well, the slope is, okay, technically it's minus 20, just to be clear. The slope of the demand curve is minus 20. This means that if price rises by 1, quantity demanded will fall by 20 units. And if price falls by 1, quantity demanded will rise by 20 units. In the linear demand equation, QD equals 100 minus 50p. What is the slope of the demand curve? What does this number represent? The slope of this demand curve is minus 50. This means that if the price rises by 1 unit, quantity demand will fall by 50 units. If price falls by 50 units, quantity demand will rise. Or if price falls by 1 unit, quantity demand will rise by 50 units. What about this one? QD equals 100 minus 30p. What's the slope? What's the number for P? The slope of the demand curve is minus 30. This means that if the price falls by 1 unit, quantity demanded will rise by 30 units. And if price rises by 1 unit, quantity demanded will fall by 30 units. In the linear demand equation, QD equals 100 minus 70p. What is the slope of this demand curve? What does this number represent? The slope of the demand curve is minus 70. As always, guys, it's the number before P. Help me out here. This means that if the price falls by 1 unit, quantity demanded will rise by 70 units. Okay, I'm going to end it there, and then I'm going to wait till the next video to answer the last few questions.